Today I want to show you this black Nikon F with eye-level prism, which I've recently purchased, and actually sold my chrome one, which I've done the Nikon F overview on. So it's basically just to tell you the differences with this one and about exposure metering, because I've had some questions about that. And first of all, what made me buy this? Well, as you can see, the condition isn't fantastic. It's very brassy. Got lots of scratches, marks on it. The prism itself is in very good condition. It's got a few light marks at the front and a bit of brassing on the top. But the body has also got an odd little ding there, a little dent in the shoulder. But I brought it because I love the design of it and the way it looks, the prism. It just seems to signify the old film days, even though actually this camera is from about November 72, which is actually later than the chrome one I had, which was 66, and that one had a meter. But as I say, Nikon made these eye-level prisms or non-metered prisms available during the F's lifespan, which was up to 1974. They generally call this an Apollo version, although it's not actually linked to the Apollo space flight or anything in any way. But some alterations they did were making a plastic black covering on the advance lever, which is similar to the F2, which actually came out at the time that these were made, and also they put black plastic on the self-timer control. So like I say, it's just generally, I'm not going to tell you a lot about the controllers again, because it's basically just the same as the chrome Nikon F, which I've already done the overview review on, which you can obviously look at. But I just think this camera just looks so nice, even in this condition. And I will, I'm sure, one day get a near mint one. It's going to cost me an arm and a leg, but I will do it, I'm sure I will. So that's the camera itself, and basically now I just want to talk about metering, because obviously the thing you're missing with this is a meter. Now Nikon did make a clip-on meter for these, which very rarely come up on eBay for sale. So that's one option, but other options that are available, first of all, there's a rule called the Sunny 16 rule, which a lot of photographers still use actually, and basically what that means is the 16 stands for the aperture f-stop, and it's called Sunny 16 because on a sunny bright day with distinct shadows you would set the aperture to f16 on the lens, and then you set the shutter speed to the ASA or ISO speed of your film. So for example, if you was using 100 ASA film, you set the shutter speed to 1/125th of a second, and on a, like I say, at that setting you would get correctly exposed shots on a sunny day with distinct shadows, and that's why it's called the Sunny 16th rule, because of the aperture setting. And obviously if you're using different speed film, if you're using 200 ASA film, you would use a shutter speed equivalent or nearest to 200, which would be 1/250th of a second. So that's the way it works. Now, so basically with that, if you're out on a sunny day, distinct shadows and you're actually in the sunlight, you could use the camera like that. You wouldn't need to make any further settings, and then if, say, it goes very slightly overcast, you would need to compensate by one stop. You want one stop extra exposure then, which obviously you can do on the shutter or the aperture. And if you've got really soft shadows, you would need to compensate for 2 stops, and if you've got no shadows at all, 3 stops, and if it's very overcast or in the shade, you're looking at 4 stops. So that's the way that rule works. And obviously, although it's called Sunny 16, you don't have to have your aperture on f16. If you wanted a wider aperture, you would say if you want f8 instead, you can move the aperture down 2 stops to give you a wider aperture, which is letting in more light. So then you decrease the shutter speed by 2 stops, and that's the same equivalent. So f8 at 1/500th of a second is the same as f16 at 1/2/5 of a second as regards exposure. Obviously the difference is the depth of field and the way it will stop motion because of the shutter speed. That's that rule. The alternative which was available at the time this camera was made is a manual exposure meter. This is a Western Master 5. I say this was actually available during the production time of the Nikon F. It's a British made light meter, and you basically set the film speed in the window there by pressing that little button in, rotating the dial, so it sets the ASA speed you've got on your film. And so I usually use 200 ASA, and then you press in the button which then takes a light meter in, and the value is in EVs, and obviously it's quite dim in here. If I just point it to the outside, better reading. Okay, so and when you let go of the button, it holds that meter in. In that case, you can see I've got about 11.5 on the EV range. So I've got, make sure you've got your film speed set correctly, as I say, and then you basically just move this outer red pointer to the 11.5 on the scale, and then you can read off the shutter speed aperture which you can use. So in this case you've got, for example, let's say 11.5, you've got f11 1/100th of a second, down to 1/400th of a second, f5.6. Obviously you've set equivalents to that, and that's how you could use a light meter. Now in its default mode it acts on reflective light, so when you press it in it's basically reading the light reflected off the subject. Another way is to, you can fit a little dome on the back, and that's called incident light reading, which measures the light falling on the subject. And the way you would do that is to say if the sun is this way, you would point the meter in towards the sun, but not in the sky area, but in that same area, and take the reading that way, and that would take an incident light reading. So that's another method of doing exposure. And a more modern method, or what's available now, is apps on your phone, and I've got one called Light Meter Tools, which I think is very good. I'd recommend it. It's on the Play Store. There is a trial version for 60 days you can try, which has got all the functions, and then you can just purchase it. It's low cost, not expensive, and basically you run the app and you can press on camera meter and you set the ASA ISO speed you want, and you're pointing at the subject, and it gives you an EV value here, and then it gives you the f-stop and shutter speed required for that reading. And the good thing about that is obviously you can see where it's taking the exposure metering from the subject, and you can zoom in etc on that. So it's a very nice little app, definitely recommend that. And it's got other features in there as well, even including a grey card. So a nice little app to try there. So there you go, just a short video showing you my new camera, which I just love, even though it's not perfect. Works okay. Let's listen to the self timer and the shutter firing. You've just got that marvellous analog sound to them. And put that down to 1 second. I think the slow shutter speeds on this aren't correct actually. That sounds more like 1 second. It's a bit dodgy, but it's lovely sound. You can speed that up to say 1/250th. There you go, that's my new Nikon F, and just explaining how you can do metering with them. Hope you enjoy this video, and look forward to doing another one soon. Bye for now.